Hello, and welcome to the recorded version of Social Workers and Compassion Fatigue webinar. My name is Marette Monson. I'll be your facilitator today. This recorded webinar is sponsored by ClientTrack Counselor. Let's get started. For all participants, I'd like you to have a pen and paper handy to take notes. There are opportunities in this presentation for you to write down specific information and or have discussions with people around you that will require notes. Second, do be prepared to participate. Even though this is a recorded version, if you take the information that I'm talking about and think about your answers and apply it to yourself, you'll get a lot more from this presentation. All right, so let me go ahead and introduce myself to you. My name is Marette Monson, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker. This is what I look like. And I work for the Center for Counseling Excellence. 2 years ago, Gina Searle and I founded the center, and we use research-based best practices to help clinicians excel at their work and improve outcomes with clients. As part of that mission, we feel it's important that social workers and anyone working in mental health and helping professions have a safe place where they can talk about their own mental health without fearing that it will affect their careers negatively. Among many things, we are a place where therapists can go to get therapy. In addition to that, I am thrilled to lead ClientTrack's new healthcare division on a mission to create software solutions for mental health management, because I know how critical having a simple, easy-to-use system to keep track of our paperwork and our clients is, and it improves outcomes. We are preparing to launch our first product, ClientTrack Counselor, very shortly. I love what I do, and I hope you do too. And when I was 6 years old, my teacher announced to the class that we would be going on a field trip the next day. In order to go, each student would be required to bring a permission slip signed by their parents and $1 to pay for the transportation cost. My teacher said that anyone who forgot their dollar would be left behind at school. I was really bothered by this statement. What if someone can't afford $1? What if they accidentally forget? It's not fair to make them stay behind. So I created a plan, and I secretly changed my note to ask for $2 instead of $1 and gave it to my parents. Well, happily, they sent me to school the next day with $2 in my hand, and I went to the teacher before class and asked her to take the extra $1 and use it so that everyone in the class could go. She thanked me, and she said she would return it if it wasn't needed. Well, I never got that $1 back, and I didn't know who needed it, but we all went on that field trip that day. And I've wanted to be a social worker ever since. That's what we do. We work really hard to make sure that others are not left behind and that they all have the resources they need to keep up. We work tirelessly to bring out the best in others. And it started with people like Jane Addams, who's known as the founder of social work. You've probably heard of her, but have you heard of David Austin? He was a pioneer in social work teaching, group work, and community organization. What about Dorothy Haight? She was influential in the YWCA and planned and participated in every major civil rights movement over 3 decades. We often hear about the work social workers accomplish, but we're not as familiar with the people behind the work. So today is going to be different, because for the next hour, we are going to be talking about the people behind the work, specifically you, and we are going to be talking about how to bring out the best in you. So how are we going to do this? Well, there are 3 ways. First, what we're going to do is examine the assumptions about helping professions. Then we're going to define the relationship between burnout, compassion fatigue, and secondary traumatic stress disorder. Then last, we're going to talk about treatment and prevention. So I've been joining humanitarian medical teams on trips to Haiti for the past 13 years. And one of my mentors taught me international social work in Haiti, and she decided to move there full-time several years ago. The next time I was in Haiti, I decided to visit her, and I was shocked by what I saw. She was sitting on her bed in the dark and crying. She had been having nightmares. She was jumpy at any noise. She was shaking. She was depressed and despondent. And she proceeded to tell me about all the problems she was working to solve and all the people she was trying to help and how frustrated she was. Who is taking care of you? I asked. And who can help you? Who can talk to you about the things you see and hear? She looked like I had asked her a question in a foreign language. No one, she said. No one takes care of me. No one would understand what it's like here. No one except you. I was really bothered by this statement, and again, I decided to make a plan. And this time, I vowed to someday help people like my friend and mentor who need to heal from the difficult experiences that they face every single day. As helping professionals, we often think, and we are told by others, that we need to be invincible, that we are inhuman, and that all mankind is counting on us to save them. That's a lot of pressure. And I often hear people say, I should be able to handle this on my own. I am weak if I cannot do myself what I am teaching my clients to do. Sadly, these assumptions often prevent us from seeking support when we need it. My friend soon returned to the United States, and she was experiencing symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. She reached out to me for help and support, and she was able to work through these symptoms with that help and support. On another trip to Haiti, I was teaching and mentoring some Haitian social workers when one asked me, "What do you do when people think you're a god?" I was surprised by the question. No one in the United States thinks I'm a god because I'm a social worker, I said. But my question for you today is, do they? Have you heard comments like, I couldn't do what you do, you must be so strong, or how do you not let it get to you? How many of you have heard an assumption that we should be able to handle our work-related stresses and handle them with perfection? Maybe it's an assumption that you have heard, so think about that. Charles Figley calls this a conspiracy of silence in our professions. Now, Charles started to do research on burnout, compassion fatigue, and secondary traumatic stress disorder in 1995. And his research is the basis for assessment and treatment today. And it doesn't mean that we are weak if we have burnout, compassion fatigue, or secondary stress trauma. It means that we are human, just like our clients. A recent study in Australia found that 54.8% of professionals who worked with traumatized individuals were also distressed. And 64% of Oklahoma City trauma workers had secondary traumatic stress disorder. So look around you. This means that over half of the people you work with will have clinically significant trauma symptoms. So what do these symptoms look like? Well, they won't look like the symptoms that my friend had right away, but they do start with burnout. We've all experienced it. Researchers describe burnout as a syndrome characterized by physical, emotional, and mental depletion, along with depersonalization. It is the loss of motivation and energy for work. Lots of people experience burnout, but burnout can lead to what's called compassion fatigue. Compassion fatigue, according to Figley, is a reduced capacity to remain interested in or bear the suffering of another, and it includes a decrease in empathy and compassion. It may or may not include the decreased energy and motivation from burnout. There are some formal measurement scales used to assess compassion fatigue. They are the Purdue Social Support Scale and the Compassion Fatigue Self-Test. So take a moment and write these down. I would suggest that you Google them, find the links, and take the test to see where you're at. There are questions such as, I think there's no one to talk with about highly stressful situations, and I feel little compassion toward my coworkers. Or, I have to deal with bureaucratic, unimportant tasks in my work as a helper, and I wish I could avoid working with some of the people that I help. Secondary traumatic stress disorder, also known as vicarious trauma disorder, has symptoms that are the same as post-traumatic stress disorder, except the symptoms occur because of exposure to knowledge about a traumatizing event rather than the event itself. Symptoms fall into three categories. They are re-experiencing the trauma. This can include through nightmares, daydreams, or disassociation, avoiding reminders of the trauma, or increased anxiety and emotional arousal related to the trauma. Although not officially listed in the DSM yet, there is increasing evidence that secondary traumatic stress disorder is prevalent not only in helping professionals but in others. For example, recently there was a study by Brigham Young University on the town of Hirono, Japan. This town was not directly destroyed by the 2011 earthquake or tsunami. You can see on the map where the X is. This is where the city is located in relation to the affected areas of the earthquake. During the earthquake, the residents were asked to evacuate as a precaution against a possible radiation leak. 1 year later, more than half of the residents exhibited clinically concerning symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, and 2/3 reported symptoms of depression related to the disaster. Researchers are guessing that the symptoms are due not to directly experiencing the trauma, but in the disruption that the trauma had to their community and the fear and worry that the knowledge of the event created. So, since it's important we acknowledge this type of trauma, how do we treat it? Well, emotional energy and empathy are strong predictors of compassion fatigue, so I'd like to call them E cubed. I've borrowed a formula from another famous person you might recognize. E cubed equals MC. Emotional energy and empathy equals more compassion. So if we want to improve our compassion fatigue, we must increase our emotional energy and empathy. So let's talk about emotional energy first. The emotional energy has to do with the amount of time our brains are tied up thinking about and solving problems that have a strong emotional trigger, either in ourselves or someone else. Sometimes this means suppressing our own emotional trigger points so that we can respond to another person's emotions. And it takes a lot of physical energy in our brains and certainly is exhausting. The work that we do on a regular basis requires that our emotional energy reserves are tapped. And it's important that we can gauge when our reserves are depleting and take measures to restore the energy. Most of us are aware of what depletes our emotional energy reserves, so what kind of things replenish it? I want you to just take a moment and write down a few things that help you feel emotionally recharged. Okay, got your list? Excellent. Set that aside. We'll come back to it later. Several years ago, I was working in a very high-stress environment, and the nature of the job was that I was on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Have you ever had a job like that? Well, I can say that definitely burnout, compassion fatigue, and secondary trauma were very common. And when my emotional reserves were low, a colleague would make a point to do something fun, silly, or humorous with me at work, and I would do the same for him. And we called these our fun days. Our fun day activities would take sometimes as little as 15 minutes, but they were doing as much as they could to help us not be burned out. And that was more valuable. And that's because fun and humor restore emotional reserves. So I want you to think, what makes you laugh? Find ways to laugh. And if you can't do it at work, do it when you get home. Find a work buddy who shares your sense of humor. Of course, work-appropriate humor. And have some work fun days where you can just laugh. My business partner and I are known to have our meetings sometimes at a manicure's office down the street, just because it's fun to get our nails done while we talk about serious things. And we often supervise our staff in sessions together because we laugh and banter back and forth as we're discussing ideas for working with our clients. After one such session, our clinician texted me and said, "I forgot to tell you both thank you. I really appreciate all your guidance and support, and especially all the laughter." The laughter from my business partner and also being thanked by my clinician builds my emotional reserves. We all know that being appreciated for our work helps keep us motivated and builds our emotional reserves. And it works because we feel like our work matters when someone thanks us for it. In other words, we feel like our work actually accomplished something. Figley's research shows that a feeling of accomplishment directly decreases our compassion fatigue. It's not just a feeling that our work mattered to our boss, but it's that we are seeing progress in our clients and causes that we are working with. We are satisfied with our efforts to help our clients. We believe that things are getting done. So think for a moment, how often do you feel satisfied with your efforts to help your clients progress? And as you're thinking about this, I want to point out that it can be difficult to believe that you're helping your clients progress because there are so many factors that you can't control. A good practice management tool that helps you track your client's progress and regular, frequent supervision sessions where you can be given reassurance that you have given it your best or ideas to improve your interventions is absolutely a must. So let's get back to our formula. The third E in E cubed equals MC belongs to empathy. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. One of the reasons that we get into this field is that we are gifted at feeling empathetic. Empathy is one of our strengths. So what happened to it? Well, to illustrate, let me get out of my presentation for a minute and give you an example. This is a true story. So my brother loves to snowmobile. It is his passion. And he decided his dream job would be to work in a snowmobiling shop. He got his dream job, and for about the first year, he was as happy as a guy doing what he loved could be. But slowly, he started to cut back on his recreational snowmobiling activities, and then he started complaining about going to work, and then he started getting burned out. And he came home one day, and he told me he decided to quit because he couldn't handle working there anymore, and that was really surprising to me. I asked him why, and he said, because I'm around snowmobiles all day, every day. It's not fun anymore when you're around it so much. And the job was causing him to hate snowmobiling. Well, something similar happens to us. We get in this profession because we love helping others, and then over time, simply because we do it so much, we start to lose some of the empathy that brought us in the field in the first place. So let's get back to our formula. How do we replenish our empathy? Well, the answer may surprise you. The way to restore empathy is to actually detach ourselves from our work so that we can have a break. Figley calls this disengagement, which is the extent to which a person can distance themselves from the ongoing misery of the client in between sessions or service encounters. So it's really interesting to talk about how we actually can do that. Figley recommends at least a day minimum in between interactions with challenging clients, but ideally 2 days. And this means we need to work out a system where we can cover for each other if we have a difficult client that needs daily contact. It means that we set clear boundaries and don't take calls from clients on our time off. Recently, I received a phone call from a case manager I know. She was at a client's house, and she'd been there for over 5 hours. She felt the client was not safe, and she was afraid to leave the client, fearing that if she did, the client would take her own life, and then the social worker would be responsible. After telling her to call the police and the crisis intervention team to come to the home, I told her she needed to leave as soon as they got there. She was really hesitant, and I had to remind her that she was leaving the client in capable hands of these professionals, and now she needed to disengage from the situation. She had just been there too long, and she would not be responsible if something happened to the client, because ultimately it was the client who would be responsible because she had done everything she could and contacted the right authorities. So the social worker went ahead and left once the right authorities arrived. Often we need to take that advice. We do everything we can and then document it, then leave, disengage. And it's really okay. That's not considered neglectful of our clients. It also means that when we are not at work, we can detach from work and not worry about it. This is easier said than done because our minds are often filled with challenging problems that we want to solve when we're not at work. So here are a few suggestions. First, create a detach from work routine. When I get home from work, I go outside and I put my headphones in and listen to music while taking a walk around the block. This think time allows me to think about the events of the day and problem solve, ponder, or worry. And my rule is that once I get home from that walk, those things are put away until I can get back into work. So create an end of the work routine for yourself. Second, do something that's repetitive and can allow you to think on autopilot. Some examples might be watching TV, reading a book, doing a physical activity. These things help slow your analytical processes down and signal that it's time for different thoughts to be in control. And then again, routine can start to take over. Third, write things that are running through your head down. This gives the thought a home, and you can reassure yourself that you will look at the item first thing on Monday morning and it won't be forgotten. Each time it pops into your head, remind yourself that you have it written down, so there's no need to think about it on your time off. Fourth, add variation to your caseload. Variety allows you to stop doing and thinking about the same things over and over. New tasks and ideas are exciting and motivating. A caseload of all similar clients may seem like a great idea, but over time having 2 or 3 clients with a different problem is refreshing and allows you to think about different things without getting stuck on just one worrisome problem. That's one reason I love designing software for ClientTrack, because it gives me another variation in my work. Another set of coping actions linked to decreasing compassion fatigue is enhancing social support. So if a dentist had a toothache, is he or she able to fill the cavity or do a root canal on themselves? Can doctors perform their own surgery? Maybe, but certainly not very well. And it is completely reasonable and acceptable to these professions to seek out a colleague to help them when they are experiencing challenges similar to those they treat. So it is also acceptable and reasonable for us to seek out a colleague to help us work through a difficulty that we are experiencing with our jobs or personal life. Much of what we do falls under the realm of confidential, yet we still need to share experiences and get validation. The fear of breaking confidentiality prevents us from talking out the trauma we experience. If you talk to someone in your own agency, you aren't breaking confidentiality. So find someone that you work with who can be your sounding board at the end of the day, and you can be theirs. And sometimes it helps to be able to vent to someone who has been there and understands your difficulties. Make sure you also tell them your successes. Celebrating together can increase your sense of achievement and be a means to bring in some laughter and fun at work. Make sure this person is able to maintain your confidentiality as well, because this is often how gossip gets started. If you can't talk to someone in your own agency, you can talk to a contracted supervisor or a therapist of your own. Also, remember, you can share feelings without breaking confidentiality at all. There's no need to include client identification information like names or even history by saying something like, I'm feeling so tired because I don't have the time or energy to give a client the attention they demand. Something like that is perfectly confidential. Now, a very good option is to get yourself a therapist. And therapists can provide a sounding board when you need it, can monitor you to make sure you're preventing compassion fatigue and burnout, and they can treat you if you have symptoms of secondary traumatic stress disorder. So check with your insurance company. They usually will have some kind of EAP service that you can use for even a few sessions or even a hotline that you can call. Treatment for secondary traumatic stress disorder involves the same things that we do for clients that have post-traumatic stress disorder. We just desensitize the mental health worker to the traumatic stressors through a method that will minimize the degree of discomfort and maximize exposure to the stimuli that accounts for the distressing symptoms. So techniques like EMDR and trauma-focused cognitive behavior therapy work really well. A support system of colleagues and therapists is highly recommended, and so is improving social support networks outside of work. It was surprising to me to discover research that showed that helping professionals often have very few friends who know them outside of their professional relationship. Figley says it's vital to increase the therapist or social worker support system in both numbers and variety of relationships so that he or she can be viewed apart from the therapist or social worker persona. And make sure to address social relationships that are a source of strain or stress and change or eliminate them. So let's go back to that list of things that help you feel emotionally recharged. Do any of them fall into some of these prevention tips that we've talked about? If so, put a star next to them. And if you can think of something new now that you can do to help treat yourself, then go ahead and add that to the list. The last thing I want to do is ask if I could get your commitment. Will you commit to do these things on your list as often as you need to maintain your own ability to be the best that you can be? I certainly hope so, because doing these things will help prevent you from developing the symptoms of burnout, compassion fatigue, and secondary traumatic stress disorder. Figley has also identified 10 risk factors that, taken together, form a model that predicts compassion fatigue. The first one is listed here, empathetic ability. This is how well you can balance your empathetic concern for clients with a healthy level of detachment. If you can balance it well, you'll be less likely to develop compassion fatigue. But if you have a hard time with that, you're at more risk. The second thing is empathetic concern. This is how motivated you are to deliver the highest quality of services possible to those who seek it. If you're very motivated to deliver the best quality services, you'll be less likely to develop compassion fatigue. The third one is exposure to the client. Those people with more direct exposure to clients are at a greater risk for fatigue. So how much do you see and interact with challenging clients? It's not surprising that a lot of people in our field end up in management positions where they interact less with clients as time goes on, because it helps with their burnout potential. The fourth one is empathetic response. How much do you experience the hurt, anger, and other emotions experienced by the client? If you feel as emotionally charged about a situation as the client does, then you might be at greater risk. The fifth one is compassion stress. How much do you feel an ongoing demand for action to relieve the suffering of a client? That's a call to action to go ahead and make things change. And if you feel that a lot, then you're at higher risk for compassion fatigue. But it can also make you a better social worker because you want to make changes in their life. But you often feel responsible for making those changes. Number 6 is a sense of achievement. How much do you believe your actions are helping your clients? We talked about this already. If you think you're really helping your clients, you'll be less likely to be burned out or fatigued. Number 7 is another one we've talked about, disengagement. How much can you distance yourself from the misery of the client in between encounters with the client? I hope that you can, because it will help so that you're not fatigued. Number 8, prolonged exposure. How many days in a row are you exposed to stressful situations and clients? I remember some of my most productive times were when I had Wednesdays off in the middle of the week, because I only had Monday and Tuesday, and then I had a day off, and then Thursday and Friday. So that day in the middle of the week made it so I didn't have 5 days in a row of dealing with stress. So how often or how many days in a row do you deal with stressful clients? The more you do, the more higher risk you are. Number 9 is traumatic recollections. How many memories do you have that trigger symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, or anxiety? These memories are not just your own memories from your own life, but they do include those. They can also include events that clients have told you about. The more traumatic memories you have, the higher risk you are. And the last one is life disruption. How many unexpected changes in schedule, routine, or managing life responsibilities do you have, both in and outside of work? The more you have, the higher risk. So if these are the risk factors of compassion fatigue, it makes sense that addressing them can prevent it as well. So we've covered a lot today. Let's take a look and a reminder of what we've done. We examined the assumptions about helping professions. We defined the relationship between burnout, compassion fatigue, and secondary traumatic stress disorder. And last, we talked about treatment and prevention. So did we accomplish our goal? I think so. And this means our time together is nearing an end. So the last thing I want you to remember is that your contribution to this field is just as valuable as Jane Addams, David Austin, and Dorothy Haight. We need all of you functioning at your best to change the landscape of our communities, legal systems, schools, and mental health agencies over the next 100 years. I am happy to be available for consultation and questions. Here is my contact information. Please feel free to send me an email or give me a phone call if there's anything that I can help you with. My goal is to make it so that clinicians and social workers like us can be most effective. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And if you would like more information about our new mental health practice management tool, this is the website information, www.clienttrack.com/counselor. Thank you, and have a great day.